Alright, we're rolling.
Lovely.
Trying to do a better job of keeping track of the time. I was lucky last time, I just happened to look at it when we had 5 minutes left. Alrighty, so first topic is drugs. And that's a combination of two topics, which was illegal drugs and psychedelic drugs. And both of those got voted up by someone. So there's some interest there. One question I wanted to ask was, if there was some new drug that came along that, just for simplicity's sake, didn't seem to have any side effects, hadn't yet been legalized or illegalized, right? So
Yeah.
it's on the table, and there was some available to you. What would your thinking be as to whether you would try it or not? Let's say people claim that that it's a psychedelic, and it's different to other psychedelics.
I'd view it the same as trying a new food.
Okay.
Someone says, hey, try this new cuisine that isn't going to make you sit on the toilet for the next 5 days. It's not illegal, this food. Why don't you give it a shot? I'd say, yeah, why not?
So why not?
I'd wait, because you sort of see when those synthetic marijuana, like the other cannabinoids, came out, people were preaching that they were safe and didn't have any symptoms.
Like chronic.
Yeah, chronic and stuff like that. And people were like, yeah, this shit's safe. And then you sort of see how bad they actually were in terms of the side effects eventually. So,
And some of them were actually addictive. I think.
So personally, I'd sort of wait and
Yeah.
see, and sort of, I wouldn't just trust someone to say it doesn't have side effects.
But there'd be some interest?
There'll be
you wouldn't
some
be
interest. Like, I was actually looking up how to produce the cannabinoids, because it seemed relatively simple to produce, and there was a couple of academic papers out of Israel that was showing how to
Oh yeah.
make them, like the really strong ones, and then sort of like, it seems like a good idea, but I didn't have access to a journal at the time. They were like $50 or $60 a paper.
So besides chronic, right? If you were to synthesize THC, right? Is that what people are trying to do?
No, they were just synthesizing other cannabinoids that
Oh,
were,
so there's more than one.
yeah, these were like 20 or 30 times stronger than THC.
Wow.
And then they just spray it on a smokable leaf and then smoke them from that.
Are these naturally occurring, or are they
They're
designed specifically to bind to
They're,
the receptors that THC do, but stronger?
they're designed cannabinoids. They're like, they're specialized.
You can't
cannabinoids.
find them anywhere else.
Yeah, you have
Understand.
Hey, we just started.
Oh, okay, cool.
Grab a drink or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just put the question, actually.
And the question is?
The question is, if there was some new drug, right, which hadn't yet been deemed illegal or legal, which people claim is a psychedelic and that there's no apparent side effects, what would your thinking be if this was offered to you?
Has everyone
Yeah,
something to
yeah.
say?
So Braden's view was, why not? Sort of, it's a new food. It's like a new food to try. Michael, how would you summarize?
Wait and see. I don't trust that there won't be any side effects.
Interesting, a little off topic, vaping has not been placed into the dangerous or not dangerous category just yet, because it's fairly still new. And we don't know if it causes cancer yet, because it hasn't been long enough for it to have a direct, or rather to find a direct correlation between vaping and...
I suspect also that the tobacco... Sorry, that's my phone. Charlie can't make it. I suspect also that the tobacco industry is not too keen on vaping coming out the way that it has, because people have been able to just completely bypass big tobacco and get their hit and manage it for way, way cheaper. And so some countries have legalized vape, vapes, and I think here you have to order it in. I can't remember if you can buy it.
State by state regulation.
Okay.
But it's a problem because it delivers way more nicotine without
You can.
making you feel sick, right?
You can make your own mixes,
Right.
and so some people mix it so that they're stepping down the milligrams, and then they get off smoking. It's like it's been successful with quite
Yeah.
a lot of people, and so it shows some promise there. But I suspect that the tobacco industry, all it really needs to do is to keep it from being known, like just keep everybody confused as to whether it's a health concern.
Yeah.
So just keep publishing articles saying, we don't know, the jury's out, right?
Yeah.
More research is needed. And just tear down anybody who does put forward any research. Just make it seem like they're...
I don't think it makes a difference to people at all whether it's a health concern or not. I think people just use it whether they, just like cigarettes really.
what about people new to smoking? You reckon they would?
Well, they are. That it's been a gateway now, right, for kids because it seems more accessible and cool and stuff than smoking. So, so it's having actually the reverse effect on the numbers of people smoking, I believe. So my answer would be whether it's legal or not, I wouldn't want to try it just because of the mind-altering effect.
Right. So so for both you and Michael, let's fast forward like 10 years, and Braden's tried it, I've tried it, and we've all survived, and there doesn't seem to be any side effects. It really does seem to be something that just temporarily alters your state of mind and then returns it back to normal. Any interest?
No. None whatsoever.
I probably would. I'm more concerned about safety than anything else.
So would you trust a tried and tested, rigorous investigation of the drug?
Or even if there's just enough anecdotes around,
Yeah.
like 10 years worth of anecdotes is probably enough to sort of get a pretty good baseline on what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That could be a good street name for the drug. Anecdote.
Dope.
Anecdote.
I was reading on Reddit just briefly about modafinil, which is one that people use for study, and in this entire post, there are obviously people that had used it for study and were offering their recommendations for. The question that was posed was, if I've taken this substance while studying, should I also take it for the test to be in the same kind of state of mind, perhaps be able to more readily access the memories? And there was just mixed messages, but most people said to be, I shouldn't really say, but nowhere in the conversation was any ethical question. No one was asking, should we or shouldn't we? It was all just people saying, if you do, then watch out for this, and this was my experience, and I'll never do it again because of this, and so on.
Ethical in terms of performance enhancement kind of thing? Or
Just the how do I put this? Like, drugs are bad.
okay.
We should by default be staying away from them.
But who's operating with that? Like, who still thinks of it as being an ethical thing, whether to take drugs or not? That doesn't seem...
I don't know, isn't that what kids are getting told? I'm not sure.
It's still a very widespread thing that, yeah, because it's illegal, it's bad, or because you don't have prescription, you're not supposed to use it, so it's ethically wrong.
I think ethics is the wrong word.
Which word would you, just unlawful?
Unlawful, yeah.
Not socially acceptable. What about the socially? It's not socially acceptable.
Socially, that makes more sense, yeah. Socially acceptable. I draw the line where your taking of a drug affects other people, right? So, if you drink, that's affecting other people. If you smoke, that's affecting other people. If you drink coffee, not so much.
But this is excluding like medicinal use, right? So if a person's got some disease,
Well, the implication then is if you don't take it, it's affecting other people, right?
Right. So it's a concern for.
I think that I find the idea of people intentionally and consciously, when they should be better equipped to make a decision, making a decision to put themselves in a position where they can be a danger to someone else, and doing that intentionally, that I find an ethical problem with.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me of I have I suppose you could say, a negative feedback loop with drinking alcohol. It's like, and I saw a T-shirt that exemplified it nicely. It said something like, "I'm just a guy who likes to have one drink, but when I have one drink, I become a guy who likes to have a second drink."
So a positive feedback loop.
Well, negative in that it does me damage.
A negative, positive feedback loop.
Yeah,
Okay.
negative reinforcing, right?
Yeah.
And sure enough, after a second drink, I do become a person that becomes interested in seeing how far I can take this. And then I get sick, then I feel sick, and the whole thing seems like the worst idea in the world, but there's not a lot I can do about it. And then I go into this real health kick where if I've vomited or something, I'll drink heaps of water, I'll like do the dishes, and I'll, sort out my laundry and just make the whole world as better place as I can so that I can crash and be hungover and not feel as guilty. So that's the cycle that I used to go through. And
Repeatedly.
yeah, because I was brewing my own beer. So it was cheap. Nobody else was going to drink it because they were experiments. And it was on hand. Yeah. So, I can empathize with a person who's, like in a sober state, deciding to have a little fun, but then becoming a person that becomes intensely interested in exploring further and having more. But that hasn't really been my experience with psychedelics. It's like, I actually enter into psychedelic experiences with a lot of trepidation. I actually get anxious before doing a psychedelic because I anticipate that I'm going to lose various aspects of control, and I just don't know if there'll be some emergency and I need to have my faculties with me, and I just can't say anything about it. But I would also liken that to traveling, in that if I'm about to travel somewhere, I get anxious about whether there might be an emergency here and someone needs my help here, and yet I'm off traveling somewhere else. It's the same concern. And since I can't know when I'm going to be needed for an emergency, I should probably adopt the view of just being available and ready at all times. But I don't. I just treat it as though emergencies happen once in a while. If I happen to be on a psychedelic at the time, then tough luck. Yeah.
I think you'd have trouble with that, retrospectively. I think you'd be easily talked out of feeling bad if you were away. I should have been there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if you had been present but useless, you would struggle to repair that with yourself.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Actually, it was you that introduced me to this idea that I don't like guilt. And so, there's all these questions that arise for a person morally, like should I or shouldn't I? And usually the concern is what the repercussions will be, like ebbing out from me, how will it affect my family and so on. But just the simple fact that if I'm going to feel guilty about doing something, I'm going to have to deal with guilt.
Yeah.
I'm either going to have to repress and deny or try and ignore it, or I'm just going to have to live with some shittiness. And ideally, there would be a life which is guilt-free.
Yeah, that's a huge problem for me, with the tiniest thing. And because I'm so aware of that now, I do everything I can to avoid it. So it's infinitely better for me to take a beating in real life, rather than live with, having made a decision where I'll go back in time and go over that again and again, because I really struggle with that.
Right.
I suppose nobody likes to feel guilty, do they?
Yeah. But I think it's a reflexive thing, and I'm guilty of doing this. Yeah, it's just like easier on my mind when something goes wrong, especially if it happens suddenly. Something breaks. Right? It's much easier on my mind to fixate, to explain that to myself as being someone else's fault. like it wasn't manufactured well enough to sustain falling, and so it broke, or somebody shouldn't have put it there in the first place, or if somebody else hadn't this or that, then I wouldn't have broken it. All of those sorts of explanations are easier on my mind. And so, yeah, I think it's had to come from outside. Someone else has had to sow this seed in my mind that I don't like guilt, and even if I'm repressing it, it still sucks. It's just like this extra effort I'm making. And now I'm becoming aware of that, so I'm becoming sensitive to it, and yeah, it's quite interesting.
This is my tactic for teaching, my children how to behave as well. Because to me, the law is like the least relevant aspect of anything.
Right.
Like
Well,
we're
you
saying,
mean
like,
don't do
ethics
it because it's against the law?
I don't care at all. Like shoplifting.
Right.
The fact that it's against the law is meaningless. Right. It's first, like your duty to the shopkeeper is well before your duty to the law, right?
Right.
But even then,
Because it's a real person and not an abstract
absolutely,
set of agreements.
but I mean, even if you take a big Woolworths or a big Coles or something like that, your duty to yourself is so much more important than before even the shopkeeper and definitely before the law. You will have to live with yourself.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It sucks trying to go over in your head what you should have done. What if you could just take something back.
But what if you can tell yourself a story and just believe it enough to get by? That this, this corporation has been ripping everybody off, and they deserve it. Or, you come up with some story where you're this
as long as you can maintain that for life, that's awesome. But I doubt you will. I think you'll probably outgrow it at some point, and then you will have to live with your actions. So yeah, ethics 101. What was the topic?
Drugs.
Oh, not ethics.
We're still there, I reckon. So one concern is, as we become, one way to look at drugs right now is the substances which we chance upon in a lab, or that we find in nature, or that we discover that some people somewhere have been consuming for a while and using in a certain way. And so one might see the current landscape of drugs, and including medicinal ones as well, ones that are legal and illegal. One might look at that landscape and see that it's in its infancy. It's rather crude. We're taking chances and just seeing what happens and so on. But what about in the future when we start tailoring drugs? Like Michael, you're saying with the artificial cannabinoids, they might be able to tailor make these things to suit a certain person, a certain ailment, right? To alleviate pain and not give any kind of psychoactive experience.
Oh, that's different again. That's sort of balancing the. They already do that with controlling the amount of THC and what's the other major
CBD.
component? Yeah, CBD. Just through simple plant genetics.
Right.
In regular marijuana, they don't even bother to create artificial cannabinoids. They just sort of use the cannabinoids naturally occurring to get the right ratios.
Right.
Before this podcast, I stumbled across a video that I thought was interesting enough to watch, and it was 3 reasons marijuana should not be legalized.
Okay.
And one of
Cool,
the first
I
ones.
wanna
That was
hear
the latest Kurzgesagt.
Kurzgesagt, exactly. Love that channel. Brilliant channel. Anyway, one of the reasons I didn't even think about was how different the plant was to how it is now.
Okay.
In THC and CBD content, and it's been bred to be far more potent in today's society than it was, I suppose, naturally occurring. And that was a fact that wasn't at the forefront of my mind at all. I just thought that's the same as it has been forever.
Yeah. I would add in there some concern about how people use different chemicals to lace the stuff, or to try and get more buzz or spin or whatever the terms are.
It's so much more useful a conversation than drugs should be illegal. Why? Because
Because
they
the
should
law
be legal.
says.
Why? It's like, why are we having this conversation? Why aren't we talking about what the actual implications are, and so something like making sure that if it is legal, people would have access to good, stuff that isn't going to kill them. That seems like a far more relevant concern.
Also, there's a distinction I came across between legalizing drugs, which a lot of people, and decriminalizing. And decriminalizing is a far more achievable goal, it seems, where it's illegal, but the cops aren't going to do too much about it, right? That's decriminalization.
That's a lot worse for the government in terms of
fine
revenue and everything. Legalizing means creating markets, what they can tax, and decriminalizing sort of creating a grey area where people grow their own stuff. It's, if you want sort of like to have really high quality marijuana or drugs, you want it to be completely legalized, because that way you can sort of package it like,
and it can be regulated and
like alcohol. So you could basically
and heavily taxed as well. The government can get a whole bunch of revenue.
Well, you basically, how you buy a bottle of beer, it says 5% alcohol. You theoretically will be able to buy strains that will say, X% THC.
Yeah.
Like, they can already do that, and I'm pretty sure in legal marijuana markets they already have. I'm not sure if they're down to like milligrams. I know they are with edibles. I'm not sure about with raw marijuana if it's just sort of high, medium, low, or if they've actually got milligram
quantitative amounts.
Like coffee, medium, intense.
Yeah, but with edibles like THC candies and stuff, they'll have, this is X amount of milligrams per 100 grams.
Yeah.
But if everybody that's smoking Coca-Cola branded marijuana is dying, and the people smoking Pepsi marijuana are surviving, that's like market forces are coming into play, which seems like a much better way of having it regulated than just letting people sort of do whatever they want and not
giving them free rein. Yeah. History has shown many ways that free will is bad. We like to mess things up very often.
Yeah, I do think they have self-destructive threads running through us. So if we're never going to go back, like once we know how to, for example, grow a strain of marijuana that's going to have lower THC, higher CBD, and so on. If we're never going to go backwards from there, and we're only going to move forward into tailoring drugs to suit people, and once we get into the neurochemicals that are actually affected, and we can start manipulating things there without using drugs, what do you guys think about people tailoring their mood at the start of every day? If there's some kind of device where you just type in a code and a certain mood will present itself. Would you guys steer clear of that? Would you argue for a kind of a sobriety?
I would say, again, that sort of comes down to whether you see value in experience. It's like what does the day hold? You'll never know, because you just programmed in the outcome before you started.
Yeah, I feel like if given the opportunity, I'd just abuse it, because working Saturday mornings and driving on the freeway at 6:30, I'm just not in the mood.
Whereas you could type in a 074 and be like fully alert as a driver.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to argue that people shouldn't type in, especially if there's no withdrawals and side effects. This is just like adjusting
complete
the existing
reprogramming.
neurochemical, and never so far that you exhaust your supply or anything like that. But just bring you to your utmost of alertness before you start driving, right? And then if you're studying or something, bring forth, your capacities to, entertain information and not be distracted. And then, of course, if you're in a bad mood, be able to just say, not anymore, I'm just going to be in a good mood now, or neutral. Are people going to be, vying for, are there going to be naturalists that are going to be saying, no, we don't know what life is supposed to be about. If we're not taking it in soberly, we might be missing something?
I'd say definitely. I would probably be one of them. But I don't think, describing those people as naturalists or whatever is not right. This is the problem I have with people saying atheist or teetotal or whatever. It's like, no, just none, just nothing.
Yeah.
People say to you, why are you teetotal? It's a very strange thing to ask to me. It's like,
It's a funny word too.
yeah. Oh, I heard that on QI, so I assume it's the
Yeah, it's an old word. Yeah.
right. Okay.
A teetotaler is someone who abstains from drinking alcohol, but I think it's now used to extend into
Probably
sobriety
yeah,
in general.
Yeah. But to me, that asking someone to justify why they aren't
Yeah.
modifying their experience in some way seems just backward to me. It doesn't make sense.
So the onus is on
Absolutely. Yeah.
the other people to explain why. Why?
Well, they shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I don't.
It's a bit like going
impose
up
on
to
people as well. Like that's the other thing. The other side of the coin is I'm not going to ask someone why they aren't. Why? Oh, you're Christian. Why? Like no, that's your business. It has nothing to do with me. Let's just get along.
I love asking why.
But there's why, and then there's how dare you.
How dare you is how wars start. This mind-altering technology, or the mood-altering rather technology, should it exist, be considered a drug?
Yeah, I think that our pathway into that technology will be the same interest that, like we were saying, if there was a new drug, some of us would be interested, some wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I think it's that interest to explore different mind states and so on,
Yeah.
which will push that kind of technology. And there'd be some medical reasons as well, people that,
Yeah.
I don't know, someone's going to get the idea that altering people's mind states might help with various mental illnesses and so on. So there'll be some medical reasons for advancements, but then people are just going to use it recreationally.
Yeah.
And then it's going to come to a point, I think, where we're not actually bringing in chemicals from elsewhere. We're just going to be moving them around and making them more available within your own mind or brain.
So would that be the definition of a drug then? Just something that alters the natural state of mind? Because something that would just alter your mood, for example, I deem similar to just a tanning salon.
No, I think
I'd like to be
drugs
tanned.
are reserved for a substance. So
Okay.
you're actually like a substance being added to your system.
Okay.
I don't know what you'd call that though. It'd be like
Well, I don't know, because
manipulation.
I think if you get cosmetic surgery, like if I don't know, someone wants bigger breasts or a bigger bum or something, they often don't actually take anything out or put anything in. They often just rearrange things.
Right.
So has anything happened?
Yeah.
By the end of that, I'd say yes.
Yeah, but you'd have to give it a different name than implants.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. But unless we come up with some other way, like maybe through virtual reality, people just have psychedelic experiences there that are just so convincing. You don't need a substance, or you don't need any interventions to have, outrageous subjective experiences. Maybe we'll get ahead with that. Maybe we'll end up with memories that we inject or download that just give us this experience of having already done that drug. Right?
Yeah.
But if we don't go down those roads, then I kind of think it's inevitable that we're going to seek to control, as we do the outside world. We seek to understand how things work so that we can, mitigate whatever problems and build what we want and achieve what we're trying to achieve.
Turn it in our favour, so to speak.
Yeah, and take control of it. Similarly, I think there'll be an interest in taking control of the internals, and each person will want to be in control or have someone trusted in control of their own internals. I don't know what that's going to look like though.
To me, it's like that must be so far in the future that it's not really relevant.
Alright.
There'll be different people dealing with that,
Alright. Shall we move on?
Is that topic exhausted?
I believe so.
I hope we come back to it because there's other people who want to talk about psychedelic experiences and the profundity that some of these experiences have brought some people. So I'd be keen to do this topic again.
Sure.
So the next topic, I haven't done much research on this, but the next topic is another combination of two, which was introversion and loneliness. And so someone's voted them up, and so I thought combine the two because they seem to be related.
Yeah.
All I found is that there's some kind of estimation, some rough estimation, that between a third and half of Americans are introverted. But I don't think that a binary kind of introverted or extroverted label is a good way to divide people. It's more useful, I think, to see it on a spectrum.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. How it is usually viewed, isn't it? The
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember doing some arbitrary personality test in health class, and it gave me a combination of 4 letters. I believe it was INFG, and they all stand for something, but the I was introversion. And yeah, depending on whatever you answered to however many questions it was, it would give you some combination of letters on a scale of introversion to extroversion, or whatever definitions they used.
I just find those psychological analysis tests so hard to swallow. Like, not just simplistic ones, but the current Big 5, Big 10
I like the
kind
Big
of
5.
in depth kind of ones. To me, it's such flaky bullshit science. Like, I appreciate that it yields results. Like it does work in a sense that you can actually measure something and make a prediction and have it, show out. But to me, the amount of like wiggle room within that must be enormous. Like, you, with a particular individual, you must be having to average over so many people to get past the fact that people are way more complex than that. Like Big 10, Big 5, it's still just way too like low resolution.
Yeah, that's a good term.
Just because also because people, even if you can nail it, say on average this person is kind of like this and kind of like that they're all these 5 flavors, right? Over time, that person is all over the charts with all of those different things.
Well, they do say with the Big 5, and I'm not defending it in any way, that with those particular traits, people don't vary very much over their lifetime. But then I'm not sure what people are talking about, because I feel like I'm a different person. I don't know, a year from now, I'll have a different worldview, different values and all sorts of things. I'm sure if I looked, though, there'd be some threads through my life that are consistent. And but yeah, low resolution I think is the right term, because I see us completely abandoning those measures once we become nuanced enough to have better and more than 5 traits, but that will never stop, because I don't think there's a bottom to, or there's an end to how complex a person can be, and to try and simplify it down to some letters or some percentages doesn't do justice to the individual.
One of the big cruxes of the Big 5, specifically when you recommended I take it just for
Shits and giggles.
just for shits and giggles, for lack of better words, there was a lot of confirmation bias for me when it gave me some spiel about whatever category I fit into. I thought, oh yeah, I am like that. Oh yeah,
just like your horoscope.
Yeah.
And then you realise, I was reading the wrong one.
Horoscopes I find quite funny, because there's such general, broad things that could apply to anybody.
My horoscope is so fucking accurate. It is like the most frustrating thing. It's like just every time it's just pixel perfect.
There's going to be a change.
I'm not talking about the predictions, but I mean the character description. It just always 100% describe me.
Oh, okay, always.
Which is obviously exactly what it's intended to do. But every now and then they'll throw in some specifics. So obviously they have their very general stuff that'll always. But with Leo, it's always like the center of attention, got to be the class clown, or you'll find them in the drama class after school. It's like, God damn it! It's like
You mean-
exactly
but
what
hang on,
I'm
but-
doing while reading this fucking horoscope.
But what do you do then? Because obviously, when they hit it correctly, when they say something specific and it happens to match up, then you get all wooey. Well, maybe you don't.
No, I
but
don't. I just think
do.
that the archetypal pick that they've done for Leo, which they like heavily water down with just general stuff anyway. So any Leo reading their horoscope will be able to say, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, pick a couple.
But
of things
they
out,
have
yeah.
got a character for each horoscope.
Okay.
So, Leo
I don't
is
know who
supposed
this
to be
they
kind of
is.
this way inclined.
But there'll be so many different people that draw from so many different wooey books on horoscope reading that will say, Leos are like this, and then other books will say Leos are like that, right? Or is there
Right,
some
sure, yeah.
ancient consensus?
That's
as to
true, yeah.
how these-
I assume there is some sort of canonical version though, otherwise, like, I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah.
I've read horoscopes in 3 different countries and come across the same shit.
So one of the dividing lines, so I said that introversion and extroversion is not very useful binary. It should be a spectrum, right? But there is a sort of a tipping point that I find salient, which is somebody has said that extroverts will actually, when they go out in public or in a group situation, actually become more and more energized by that, and they come away feeling energized. Whereas a quote-unquote introvert will become exhausted by their social experience and feel they need some time alone, and in that time alone they actually feel their energy's returning.
Yeah.
And I kind of see that as it kind of forces you into one camp or the other. Do you guys experience...
Well, that's exactly correct for me.
Which
on
one?
On the extroverted side. But I have no idea whether that's true for introverted people. I feel like it's probably, based on my experience with my brother, who I would definitely put on the other side of the fence.
Yep.
That seems to be the way he works.
Right.
He'll retreat and be perfectly happy
Yeah.
with his own company for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I took that. I wish I could remember the name of it.
Myers-Briggs.
Is it?
That's what gave you
we
those
studied
letters,
with
I
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Myers-Briggs.
That was probably.
Which has been like heavily debunked now.
Has it?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
like-
surprised.
yeah.
But yeah, I took it about 7
Is
or 8
that
years
Jung's
ago.
one as well? Because Jung had one where it ended up with a bunch of letters to describe you.
I don't know.
Can't
I assume
remember.
it's Myers and Briggs's.
Yeah, I think. No, I know that's Myers-Briggs, but I'm not sure if. Anyway, I'll look it up after.
Yeah,
Jung had something to do with it.
I took it about 7 or 8 years ago. When I was branded an introvert, based on my answers, I thought, yeah, I suppose, and it's rang true a couple of times. And I don't know if it's because of my apparent introversion or just my distaste for people, but in my group of friends, it takes me maybe 2 hours before I have at least 3 reasons to kick every one of them in the head,
Right.
and I just need to
Yeah, but that's
excuse
the
myself.
problem.
Do you
with
reckon
that
it
is-
would happen with a group of strangers, or is it like just these particular
Yeah,
friends?
that's my
Yeah, maybe you need better friends.
well, I mean,
I just get burnt out a bit
Yeah.
being around people, like just constantly having to think and interact.
yeah.
I just want to focus on my own thoughts and go into a...
Oh man, I hate my own thoughts.
Solitude is lovely.
So,
They're the worst.
so yeah, so it's sort of like, yeah, I like being around people, but I do get burnt out
Yeah.
and just have to sort of
That's
retreat.
how I feel. And then I remember when I went to parties, which is rare. I never hosted a party, or but I go to birthday parties and things, or just festive things, and somewhere around an hour and a half or 2 hours in, I just like lose all my interest in being
Yeah.
at this party. But I didn't know about the introversion, extroversion, this kind of thing, and obviously everyone there was having a good time, and so I'd sit and I'd look really serious, and I'd be thinking, what's wrong? Everything's fine.
Mm.
The food's good, everyone's dancing, but I just have no energy to carry on. And I could see through people's behaviour as well. People were being kind of deliberately silly, and I couldn't fall into it. And I just
I
became
think-
more distant.
But I think that's the wrong example. A party is not the same as a gathering with people you know. So I mean, I can experience exactly the same thing at a party,
Right.
where I just like, unless there's one particular person that I want to go and have a chat with or whatever, or I want to go and dance or participate in some activity, I'll often just feel like I can't be asked,
Yeah.
and I'd rather just go home. So it's definitely not an introversion extroversion thing. Whereas if I can grab 3 hours of time with friends of mine and just sit and joke and laugh and talk about work and complain about stuff, I'll lap that up. That'll completely, be the best medicine for me.
Yeah. So I get a curious kick. I get a kick out of being in social situations, especially when everything's going well. But even the best situation will exhaust me eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually, I'll just feel my mind is so scattered about because I've been thinking about this and I've been thinking about that, and it seems as though I need to be alone in order for, I don't know, whatever entropy that's happened in my mind to sort of settle into something cohesive, something coherent.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I have to sort of go out 3 or 4 days in a row, then it starts to sort of get to the point where I'm sort of like, I really don't want to do this.
Like, just cumbersome.
Yeah, like
Just can't be bothered.
Yeah, it'd be like, I'll sort of force myself to go because if it's like an important event, but like generally I'll sort of be like after 2 or 3 days out, I'll just be like, nah, it's like, and it'll be like with 2 or 3 different groups of friends, so it's not like getting burnt out on the same people or anything, it's just sort of getting burnt out from being social.
Yeah.
On the topic of loneliness then, because that you said was bundled together, would you say, because introverts do value their solitude, would you say they're less prone to becoming
I would
lonely?
imagine so,
Yeah, and extroverts would be much more
I really
prone?
struggled with that last year when I wasn't working. It was like hell for me, just being alone. Like I need people around me all the time, and you just get that for free at work,
Yeah.
So I really felt that. But I mean, it's not like it was a bad experience. It's probably worth having,
Yeah.
because it does, like what you described, where after a certain amount of time you just need to recharge. In certain situations, that's me as well, and maybe over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
But I mean, a situation like boarding school for me was just ideal, right? Just constantly surrounded by people, and I mean, probably about half the people with me at some point would want to just go and be alone, right?
Yeah.
But there's always enough people around that the party keeps going, right? So, like that really sort of, I guess, set the tone for me. And my brother was in boarding school as well, and he was perfectly happy to be solitary, and
Right.
as long as there's a space that you can retreat to as well. That's the kind of the issue with those communal kind of situations.
So you seem born this way.
Yeah, but I think with loneliness as well, you can, as an introvert, you can get lonely. Like,
Yeah, I've experienced loneliness.
Yeah,
It takes a few days though.
Yeah, if you sort of like when you're like if you're traveling or something, or you're in a new situation where it's sort of like hard to break into an in group,
Right.
like to have.
Or to feel yourself to be very obviously outside of the group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sort of like you sort of end up being a bit lonely. Sort of like because you want some social interaction sometimes. So it's kind of like, but when you sort of don't, when you're introverted, you sort of like end up a bit sort of like it's difficult to sort of start the conversations and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you're sort of like, I really want to start a conversation, but I'm not sure.
Well, for
how
me,
to
it's
break
like
into
I
it.
want to be in the midst of one.
Yeah,
Starting is awkward. You never know. But once the conversation's going, that's where I want to be. It's in the
Yeah.
midst of it. Yeah.
contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Loneliness. Do you guys ever? Are you ever struck by? I'll use the word realization, but feel free to disagree. The realization that nobody will ever be able to have your experience. So like, how wonderful something has been for you or is for you right now, or how terrible something is, you'll never be able to, at least now, currently, you'll never be able to port that experience over
Directly
to someone else so that someone else says, I really do know what you mean. I mean, we share difficulties and people empathize, and maybe they put themselves in your shoes, but that means that at best, they might go through it as though it was them, but not you. Your experience is uniquely, I don't mean to leave you with this thought or anything, but your experience is so entirely your own that there could come a sense of
Loneliness.
isolation.
Yeah.
You ever get that one?
No, never felt that way.
Empathy is
Sorry.
enough for me, to be honest. Like, yeah, Yeah, someone having empathy for my situation is enough to sort of get over that existential crisis. Like,
Yeah.
I understand that it's 100% unique and doesn't bother me, but I know
Well,
people...
there's two sides to it, isn't there? Because the fact that no one else can have this experience that each of us is having, right? So separately, has never happened in this entire universe, right? It's like brand new. So there's all sorts of opportunity for interest and so on. But there is also this, well, for me at least, every now and then, this stark realization that, you know, whatever's going on that's really beautiful, I can't be sure that I can ever truly share that with somebody, and I might just have to soak it up.
Bother you though?
I don't know. I think whenever I think I've got this from childhood somewhere, is that whenever things are really good, like we win, you know, there's a team thing and we win, or there's an abundance of something, then my thoughts always shifted with whom I could share this. If I learned something, and who would benefit from also learning this, and my mind always goes to that. And there's always this assumption that if I've discovered something, that other people will be able to have the exact same discovery and feel that it's just as good as it is for me. And then, you know, time has shown me that everybody experiences things quite differently, and I may not be able to share in this childish way that I've thought that I could. Yeah. So I've had to it's been an unwelcome realization to me that just how unique my experience might be.
I think I always just assume that other people's experiences tend to be better. You know what I mean? I think that other people probably don't want my experience.
Wait, so don't share at all? Don't
No, just
bother them with your...
Of course, if you see a great movie, you'll recommend it. If you go on a beautiful walk, you'll recommend it, right? So, and you'll want other people to experience some event in their own way. But to say my experiencing of this is unique and should be shared, that doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, so that I think I've just got this simple, like as a hangover from childhood, this simple idea that the exact experience, as it is for me, you know, like a funny joke, right? Someone tells a funny joke, and it makes me roar with laughter. The assumption is that if the same joke were told in the same way to everybody else in the world, that they'd also roar with laughter to the same exact extent. And, you know, just time after time, I've tried to repeat jokes. It's just fallen flat. Yeah.
Pardon me.
So loneliness.
Yeah.
I think, isn't there a minister for loneliness now in England? It's such a big problem that I think obviously it's more like the elderly than anyone else, but it's such a big issue with the way that we live. We're so isolated, especially this kind of lifestyle. We each have like however many 100 square meters to ourselves,
Right.
Rather than like sort of being immersed in your own family or village or tribe or whatever it is. So
tribal life or village life.
Yeah, it's far less communal now.
Yeah, so I think loneliness is going to be a huge issue for this kind of civilization forever. You know?
So if we're kind of young and fit and able and still occasionally experience loneliness, then when we're older and people are less interested in what's going on in our lives, then loneliness is most likely going to affect everybody at some point, right? Unless they've surrounded themselves with, I don't know.
Well, I mean, look at how they cure it, right? How do they deal with the problem of lonely elderly people?
Well, it
Put
seems
them
to
all
be...
in boarding school together.
I think
That's exactly what they do.
Getting a lot, if you've got strong family ties, then it's sometimes difficult to create sort of economic situations, people moving around and everything. But if you're lucky enough to have family close by, that can sort of alleviate the loneliness, I think. And there's always, like ministries and stuff are creating social programs where, you know, there's places to meet other people and create communities.
Don't you feel like it's such a band-aid fix though, to try and address something that's so much more like a root issue with the way we're living?
It's just it is incredibly difficult because people are so used to living this way and they think this is...
But it's a very recent way of living, right? I mean, this is like 100 150 years old, what we're doing now.
Yeah,
Not
people,
even that.
it's sort of
Podcasting.
Everyone's got a podcast. If
It's
there's
a
one thing
symbolism.
that unites us all,
That's right.
it's that we all have a podcast.
It's like symbolism of economic triumph that you can have this small amount of land. So you sort of have to rewire people's idea of what it is to be successful.
But the fact that we can eat meat every day,
Yeah.
that's a ridiculous thing to do. It's an absolutely ridiculous thing to do. But we do.
Yeah.
We can,
Yeah.
and we do, and we all fucking die of it. It's a terrible idea. So the fact that we can do it because we, sort of economically able, definitely doesn't sort of indicate that we should.
Yes, definitely. So, sort of that's
But humans don't tend to operate on that.
No,
It's
we're,
like I want.
we're not
the
good
thing-
at knowing what's good for us.
Yeah, I want the thing that I can't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, or that's difficult or expensive.
But
my
yeah,
friends don't have. or
the
something.
irony is that in our pursuit of these things that are bad for us, we often create a situation that solves so many problems that were faced by our previous selves. Right? I mean, like just
Like boiling water to make tea. We want tea, but we end up killing all of the waterborne pathogens, and suddenly infant babies aren't dying so much. And well, actually, no, that's not the right correlation.
I didn't know where you were going with that, but it
No,
sounded
no.
interesting.
Apparently, the advent of tea, the introduction of tea to Europe,
Oh,
meant
okay.
that people, out of their own
No,
self-indulgence,
that's not at all what I meant. Yeah,
but they're killing waterborne bacteria, and lots of people survive. They
Yeah, yeah.
die.
But I mean more like intentional sort of. We're trying to pursue a lifestyle where we can live in however many 100 square meters to ourselves and eat meat every day, and obviously that means that science and agriculture and everything is driven forward way past where it ever needed to, and creates abundance, and that should mean that if we ever realized that we really don't need all of this, we'd be in a really good position. Right?
Yeah, superabundance. Yeah, loneliness. So, I don't like any of the approaches where it's specifically explained that this approach is to try and mitigate loneliness
The
or
worst,
mitigate
yeah.
depression. You're basically saying you're bringing to light the issue that everybody would like to move on from, and then saying we're going to do all these fun activities together as a community because of this thing that we're all trying to move on from. I think you'd like putting an anchor there that's not going to go away. But I do think that community gathering and community projects and all that really are a good idea. So I'd like to see them advertised, even if they are set up to try and resolve these issues. Just not mention the issues they're
Just
trying.
approach it a bit more obliquely.
Yeah, just talk about the excitement of the project that they're working on.
No, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I think it trying to, like I was saying, such a band-aid solution. Like specifically trying to address this one symptom.
Yeah.
It's such a terrible
Especially
approach
when
to
it's-
solving
Yeah,
problems.
especially when, like, for example, loneliness is something I think which probably each person experiences differently and for like a conflation of different reasons. And so no one blanket approach is going to be, it's going to do justice to each person's experience. Yeah.
And the perfect sort of summation of that problem that you just identified is the idea of a minister for loneliness.
Yeah.
Like what a terrible
That's
way.
a bad idea.
That'll
I
solve
mean,
everything.
I suppose one aspect of it is for people that don't experience loneliness or haven't yet, they hear about this minister for loneliness and stuff, and then they become more aware. So there's some benefit in raising awareness, which means talking about an issue.
It
But
just
the
seems
actual-
like such an expensive advert for. I mean, they're going to probably have to funnel money away from some other ministry, silly walks or something.
Yeah. So we've got about 5 minutes.
But,
Not enough time to start a new topic.
Bestiality will have to wait until
It's
next.
going to keep getting pushed back forever.
I don't mind, as long as someone's voting up something more interesting. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's like Bestia files sitting there waiting for the episode to come out. zoophiles apparently.
Is that the term? Zoophiles. Mm.
Those who love there's love
Yeah.
of animals.
Yeah.
Bestiality is the act of sexually engaging with an animal.
Mm.
What if you just love animals?
Zoophile.
Yeah, but I mean, what if you just love animals? You don't want to have sex with them.
Zoophile.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
So that word hasn't been tainted now.
Yeah. So this obviously because every bestiophile, almost everyone is a zoophile. Not all though. People claim. Yeah, we shouldn't get into this.
Like vegetarians who just are vegetarians because they hate vegetables.
Yeah.
They just want to kill all the vegetables.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Maybe it would be an interesting topic.
It actually there is a serious side to it, and it's not going to go away. So it's a topic I'm happy to talk about. Would probably need some more time because we need to have some fun with it as well.
Having fun with bestiality can be the topic of the title of the podcast.
Oh no.
Yeah, bring your pets along. Yeah. All right. Well, shall we call it?
Good
Yeah.
game.